My dear friends, I want you to stop for a moment. Not tomorrow, not after you finish the next task on your list. Now, I want you to ask yourself one question, and I want you to answer it with the ruthless honesty that only the silence within yourself can demand. Are you exhausted? Not tired from a long day's work, that is a natural weariness, even a sacred one. I mean soul exhausted. I mean the kind of bone-deep fatigue that comes from fighting a battle that was never yours to fight, from pushing against a door that was never locked, from spending your life's energy trying to force a universe that would have given freely if only you had learned the art of receiving. You have been plotting. You have been scheming. You have been working yourself into a hollow version of who you were born to be, convinced that if you just add one more strategy, make one more phone call, engineer one more circumstance this time, your life will bend to your will. And still you feel like a man swimming upstream in a river with no end. Tonight, I am going to tell you why. And more importantly, I am going to show you the only way out, not another strategy, not another technique to layer upon the exhausting architecture of your striving, a completely different way of being. A way so simple, so natural, so profoundly in alignment with the laws of consciousness, that when you finally grasp it, you will not feel triumph, you will feel relief. The relief of a man who has just been told he can put down a weight he never needed to carry. Here is what you do, and perhaps you will recognize yourself in every word. A desire rises in you, beautiful, luminous, full of life, a relationship, a healing, a sum of money, a creative work that is longing to exist. The desire itself is the very fingerprint of your destiny. It would not have arisen in you if it were not meant for you. This is the first truth you must engrave upon your understanding. But what do you do the moment that desire appears? You reach for a pen and begin writing strategies. You begin calculating odds. You begin mapping the human terrain, who knows whom, which door might open to which corridor, which combination of effort and charm and perfect timing might produce the result you seek. You construct in your mind an elaborate blueprint for forcing the invisible world to rearrange itself according to your conscious plan. And then you begin to push. You push through rejection. You push through fatigue. You push through doubt that you silence with willpower. You check every door you can find, and when one does not open, you knock again louder. You work harder. You sleep less. You repeat the same actions with greater intensity, as though the problem is merely the quantity of your effort, and that if you simply do more of the same, the universe will finally yield. And what is the result? Either nothing happens at all and you collapse in frustration, questioning not the method but yourself. Or something does happen, but it arrives hollow, strained, colored by the very anxiety through which it was forced into being, and it does not satisfy the way you imagined it would. Why? Because you have made a catastrophic confusion of roles. You have appointed yourself both the dreamer and the architect, both the one who conceives the desire and the one who constructs its every physical detail. And consciousness, the infinite, inexhaustible intelligence that is the substance of all reality, watches this exhausting performance and waits. It waits for you to understand something that no amount of willpower can substitute for. It is not your job to build the bridge. Let me give you the truth that will either liberate you or disturb you, perhaps both, and that is fine. Truth has always been more interested in your freedom than your comfort. Your effort does not create. Your assumption creates. Read that again. Not your strategy, not your persistence, not the cleverness of your plan or the ferocity of your will. Your assumption, the state of consciousness you inhabit, the feeling reality you have accepted as already true, that is what shapes the world around you. That and nothing else. When you genuinely occupy the consciousness of already possessing your desire, not hoping for it, not reaching toward it, but being the person for whom it is already a living, breathing, present tense reality, something moves in the unseen realm. Circumstances begin to rearrange. People who have never met you begin to move toward you. Opportunities begin to crystallize from what appeared to be empty air. and the action that follows from this state. It is effortless. It feels less like forcing and more like following, less like swimming and more like being carried. This is not poetry. This is the mechanics of consciousness operating exactly as it was designed to operate. I speak of source, and I want to be precise about what I mean, because imprecision here has misled many sincere seekers into a lifetime of misplaced devotion. Source is not an entity outside you, listening from a distance, weighing your worthiness, deciding whether to answer or refuse. Source is not a God you must appease with the right words or the right rituals or the right quantity of positive thought. Source is consciousness itself. It is the infinite intelligence that operates as your awareness. It is the I am that you are, not the small, calculating, anxious I am that worries and plans and strategizes, but the deep, vast, sovereign I am that existed before you had a name. The subconscious creative power. The awareness that knows things your conscious mind cannot know, sees paths your physical eyes cannot see, and can arrange circumstances of such breathtaking precision that your limited understanding, confronted with the result, calls it miraculous. But this intelligence has one condition. It cannot lead you when you insist on leading yourself. Imagine this. You are lost in a vast, unmapped forest, and you have hired the greatest guide who has ever lived. He knows every path. He knows where the thickets are impassable and where they merely appear impassable. He knows the shortcuts through the undergrowth and the hidden clearings and the most direct route to where you are going. He has walked this forest 10,000 times. But instead of following him, you run ahead. You choose your own paths. You argue with his directions. You exhaust yourself scaling walls he would have shown you how to walk around. You lose hours, then days, wandering in circles through sections he specifically warned you about because you could not silence the part of you that said, I know better. I need to be in control. This is precisely what you do with Source. You ask for guidance and then override it. You invite intelligence to lead you and then refuse to follow. You declare your faith in consciousness and then act as though everything depends upon your effort alone, as though Source might forget to fulfill your desire unless you personally remind it of every detail. And then you wonder why the journey is so hard. Now here is where I anticipate your objection, and I want to meet it directly. Yes, the law requires action. Movement is woven into the nature of things. I am not teaching passivity. I am not inviting you to sit in a chair and wait for the world to reorganize itself around your stillness. There is a sacred place for action in the unfolding of every desire, but there is a world of difference between forced action and inspired action. Forced action comes from the old state. It comes from the consciousness of lack, the person who does not yet have the thing and is desperately trying to acquire it. Every step of forced action is saturated with the vibration of not yet. Every phone call placed from desperation, every application sent from anxiety, every conversation held from need. These actions do not move you toward your desire. They broadcast the state of its absence. They deepen the very condition they are trying to escape. Inspired action is something else entirely. When you have genuinely assumed the state of the wish fulfilled, when you have moved in consciousness into the reality of already having something remarkable, begins to happen. You become what I can only describe as naturally guided. Ideas arise with a clarity that feels less like thinking and more like receiving. Impulses move you in directions your planning mind would never have chosen. An urge to call a specific person. A pull toward a place you have no logical reason to visit. A quiet knowing that surfaces at 3 in the morning and will not be dismissed. These are not accidents. These are the whispers of Source. These are the first threads of the bridge of incidents beginning to form. And when you act from this place, not from desperation, but from the calm certainty of one who knows the end is already real, the action feels different. There is lightness to it. There is a quality of rightness that cannot be manufactured. You are not pushing the river. You are moving with it, and the river is faster and deeper than anything you could have forced on your own. Let me show you what this looks like in a life. A woman came to me some years ago. She wanted to leave the city she lived in. She felt suffocated by it, certain that everything she desired was waiting for her somewhere else. She had been trying to make the move for the better part of a year. She had sent applications, cultivated contacts, networked with the feverish efficiency of someone who believes opportunity must be chased to be caught. She was exhausted, demoralized, and beginning to wonder if the desire itself had been a kind of cruelty, a promise the universe had made with no intention of keeping. I asked her one question. What is the state you inhabit when you do all of this? She paused and then said, the state of someone who desperately needs to get out. And there was the whole problem, stated plainly. She was acting from the consciousness of someone trapped. Every action she took was soaked in the feeling of being stuck, of lack, of not yet. And so, with extraordinary faithfulness, consciousness kept giving her more of the same, more evidence that she was stuck, more evidence of lack, more evidence of not yet. I told her to stop all the forcing, to put down the strategies, to go instead within herself, and to assume, truly assume, with her whole imagination and feeling that the move had already happened. To feel what it felt like to wake up in her new city, to taste the satisfaction of having already arrived, to inhabit that reality so completely that the old city began to feel not like a prison, but like a place she had simply already departed. She did this. The frantic activity stopped not because she forced herself to stop, but because the anxiety that had been driving it dissolved. She rested in the assumption. Within 2 weeks, a phone call arrived. A friend she had not spoken to in years had recently moved to the very city she desired. Her company needed someone with her precise skill set. Could she come for an interview? She went. She was offered the position. She moved. She told me afterward that the entire thing had unfolded with a quality she could only describe as inevitability, as though the path had been there the whole time, simply waiting for her to stop paving over it with her own frantic activity. This is what happens when you stop interfering. Not laziness, not passivity, surrender, which is the most powerful thing a human being can do. You must learn to read the signs. They are consistent and unmistakable once you know what to look for. When Source is leading you, there is ease. Not the absence of movement or challenge, but the absence of the particular strain that comes from forcing. Doors open with a naturalness that strikes you. Conversations flow. The timing of events has a quality of precision that your conscious planning could never have engineered. When you are forcing, everything is friction. Every door is stuck. Every conversation requires persuasion. You feel as though you are pushing a boulder uphill and the hill is getting steeper. When Source is leading you, there is energy. The action, however vigorous, does not drain you. You feel pulled forward by something larger than your own will. There is curiosity and even delight in the movement. When you are forcing, there is only depletion. You have to override your fatigue to take the next step. By evening, you are hollow. When Source is leading you, there is peace beneath everything, even when circumstances are still incomplete, even when the desire has not yet fully manifested in the physical world. You know you are on the right path. The certainty does not come from visible evidence. It comes from within. When you are forcing, there is only anxiety. You lie awake running scenarios. Every delay feels like failure. Every obstacle feels like evidence that it will not work. Let these signs be your compass. They will serve you better than any map you could draw with your conscious mind. The method, when you understand it truly, is not 6 steps. It is one movement approached from 6 angles. But let me give you the architecture plainly. Assume the end. This is always first, always absolute. Do not allow yourself to be talked out of this step by the impatient voice that says, but how? The how is not your assignment. Your assignment is to occupy truly, viscerally, imaginatively occupy the consciousness of already having your desire. Not someday, not eventually. Now, in your imagination, which is the only realm where creation actually occurs. Feel it real. Give it the sensory texture of lived experience. Remain in that state until it takes on what I call the tones of reality, until it feels less like a fantasy and more like a memory of something that has already happened. Surrender the how. Having assumed the end, release the method entirely. This is the step that separates those who manifest from those who merely understand the law intellectually. The how is source's territory. The how is where infinite intelligence operates with a precision and elegance that your conscious mind, however brilliant, cannot match. To keep plotting the how after you have assumed the end is not diligence, it is interference. Say this to yourself and mean it. I know what I desire. I have assumed it in consciousness. I release all claim to knowing how it will arrive. Listen for the impulse. Once the assumption is made and the how is surrendered, turn your attention inward not anxiously, but with quiet attentiveness. You are not waiting for a thunderbolt. You are listening for the whisper. The impulse is rarely dramatic. It is a gentle nudge, a persistent thought, a curious pull toward something or someone, an idea that surfaces without invitation and lingers. These are not your imagination decorating the silence. These are source marking the first steps of your bridge. Follow the ease. When an impulse arises, test it against the signs I have described. Does it feel easy? Does it energize rather than drain? Is there peace in it? Or is there that familiar anxious strain of forced action? If ease and energy are present, follow it not from desperation, but from the certainty of one who knows the desire is already real and is simply walking toward what is already theirs. If the action feels forced, hollow, anxiety laden, it is not source leading. It is the old state reasserting itself. Wait. Trust the unfolding. This is where the faith is tested. After inspired action, the path may not look the way you expected. The timing may not match the schedule your impatient ego had drawn up. There will be moments of apparent stillness, of invisible progress, of waiting in the dark. Trust them. Every delay in a truly assumed manifestation is purposeful. Every unexpected turn is steering you towards something that your limited vision could not have anticipated. The infinite intelligence arranges circumstances across a canvas far larger than your conscious mind can see. Trust the whole painting, not just the corner you happen to be standing in front of. Remain in the state. This is perhaps the most demanding part and the most essential. The assumption is not a technique you apply once and then set aside. It is a state you inhabit. Throughout all the waiting, all the unfolding, all the inspired action, you must remain the person who already has the desire, not the person hoping it will come, not the person grateful in advance for what hasn't arrived yet, the person for whom it is already here, already real, already done. This sustained state of consciousness is the only thing that ultimately determines what manifests in your life. I am often asked, how can I surrender control while also maintaining absolute certainty? How can I let go and yet know without doubt that it is done? This sounds like a paradox. It is not. It is only the appearance of a paradox, because most people confuse two entirely different things. Surrendering control means releasing your grip on the method, the timing, the specific path, the particular sequence of events through which your desire will materialize. It means acknowledging that your conscious mind does not have the wisdom or the range of vision to orchestrate the 10,000 variables that must align for any significant desire to manifest. You let go of all of that. Maintaining certainty means holding absolute, unshakable knowing that your assumption is law, that what you have impressed upon consciousness must externalize, that the end is already secure, even if the means are entirely unknown to you. You do not doubt the outcome. You simply release your attachment to the route. Think of a farmer who has planted seed in good soil. He does not dig the seed up every morning to check its progress. He does not try to manually construct the roots, cell by cell. He surrenders every detail of the plant's growth to the intelligence within the seed itself, an intelligence that knows with perfect precision exactly what it is doing. But does he doubt that a plant will come? Does he lie awake wondering whether perhaps this time the seed has decided not to grow? Of course not. He knows the harvest is coming. He is certain of the outcome, even as he has surrendered every detail of the process. This is the balance. Certainty about the what, surrender of the how, and in that balance, that precise, luminous equilibrium between knowing and releasing, there is a peace that I can only describe as divine. There will be times, I will not pretend otherwise, when you have assumed the state, surrendered the how, and listened for the impulse, and heard only silence. When days pass, when weeks pass, when the visible world offers no sign and the impatient mind begins to whisper, perhaps it was all a beautiful illusion. I want to tell you what is actually happening in those times. Source never stops working. From the moment you genuinely assume the state, consciousness begins its invisible orchestration, arranging circumstances, preparing people, aligning events that must converge from directions you cannot see and distances you cannot measure. None of this is visible in the early stages. It all happens in what I call the Sabbath, the sacred interval between the planting and the harvest, where the work is total but the evidence is concealed. Think of it as a pregnancy. For weeks, sometimes months, nothing appears to change externally. The woman knows she has conceived, but to all outward observation, life continues as it was. Does this mean nothing is happening? The very question is absurd. Everything is happening. The most complex, precise, extraordinary creative work in all of nature is occurring in the invisible, not less real for being unseen, but more real in a sense, because it is happening in the realm where all things are first formed before they appear. Your job during this interval is not to interfere. It is not to force visible evidence into being ahead of its natural timing. Your job is to remain faithful to your assumption, to continue occupying the state, to resist the seduction of returning to the old consciousness of lack, which will present itself reliably as practicality, as realism, as just checking in on reality. And then sometimes swiftly, sometimes after what seems an inexplicable delay, everything manifests at once, with a speed and precision that takes your breath away. The job appears from an unexpected direction. The relationship arrives through an improbable introduction. The money comes through a channel you could never have planned. And when it comes, it carries with it a quality that forced manifestations never have, the quality of rightness, of inevitability, of recognition, as though some part of you, the deeper part, the part that has been in on the secret the whole time, says, yes, this is exactly what it was always going to be. Let me close by telling you what becomes possible when you truly learn to live this way. You become free from the tyranny of control, not free from responsibility, free from the burden of having to orchestrate every detail, manage every outcome, force every circumstance to bend to your exhausted will. You plant the seed with care. You assume the end with full feeling. And then you relax into the knowledge that an intelligence capable of building galaxies is perfectly capable of handling your desires. Your actions continue, but they are different actions. They arise from a different place. They carry a different energy. They are responses to inner guidance rather than desperate attempts to manufacture outer results. And because of this, they are far more powerful. A single inspired action taken from the state of already having produces results that 100 forced actions taken from the state of lack cannot match. People around you will notice the change before you are even fully aware of it yourself. They will see a quality in you that they may struggle to name, a peace, a quiet confidence, a relationship with time and circumstance that feels inexplicably different from the anxious striving they are accustomed to seeing in those who want things. They will see that things come to you more easily than they come to most people, not because fortune has favored you, but because you have stopped fighting the river and learned to move with it. Your life becomes a sequence of synchronicities so precisely timed that you stop calling them coincidences. The right person appears at the exact moment of your readiness. The opportunity surfaces when the ground within you has been prepared to receive it. Resources arrive through channels you would not have thought to look. And through all of it, beneath all the movement and the action and the unfolding, there is peace. A steady, unshakable peace that is not the peace of resignation, it is the peace of one who knows. Tonight you have a choice. You can continue as you have been, plotting and forcing and pushing, bearing the weight of a world that was never meant to rest entirely on your shoulders, exhausting yourself trying to be both the dreamer and the architect, the planter and the gardener, the seed and the soil. Or you can choose differently. You can assume the state of your desire tonight, before you sleep, with your full imagination and your full feeling, and then rest. Not the passive rest of one who has given up, but the profound rest of one who has done the only thing that was ever truly required of them. You can say these words and mean them. It is done in consciousness. I surrender the how. I trust Source to lead me, and I will follow the ease. And then watch. Not with the anxious watching of someone waiting for proof, but with the open, curious watching of someone who already knows what is coming and is simply enjoying the way it unfolds. Because here is the deepest truth I can offer you. You were never meant to do this alone. You were never meant to carry the burden of orchestration. The same intelligence that turns a seed into an oak, that turns an idea into a civilization, that turns a moment of human longing into a lifetime of realized beauty, that intelligence lives in you, as you, waiting for you to get out of its way. Go now. Plant your desire in the only soil that matters, the soil of consciousness, where all things begin and all things return. Assume it. Feel it real. Surrender the rest and trust the garden. Good night. May you rest in the certainty that it is already done, and may you wake tomorrow as one who knows, not hopes, not believes, but knows that Source is already leading you home. This is Never Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.